Yo, 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 how is everybody doing? Good to see all of you guys. Excited to really kind of share the top 10 Veve Grails, not just based on my insight or other people's insight, but actual data. So good to see everybody. We got a lot of people in the chat. We got Ace Rig Move. What's up, my man? Let's go. We got somebody from Sweden in here. What is up? We got Slider. We got Jim Lee, Big Oz. Everybody's here, man. Omar, thanks so much for coming, everybody. It's great to see you guys. It's been obviously a little bit, and I just thought, might as well come out with kind of a different video. And so, yeah, just really excited to kind of dive into what people are valuing most on the app right now, and kind of get into like my process and kind of sending out a survey to the Veve user base, and then getting their feedback on what was most important to them. And so, yeah, so let's dive into it. So here we go. So the agenda, so today we're going to be talking about some of the limitations. So in this survey that I conducted, there's a lot of biases, there's a lot of, things that I wanted you guys to consider before actually making like any kind of, claim to fame to say, well, no, this is for sure a top 10 Grail. So I talk about things like, the user base, that follows me might like things other than other people. I also have a bit of a disclaimer as well. Talk about my process, kind of how I gathered the feedback to include some of the Grails in the top 50 list. And then we look at the top 10. Then I'm actually going to show you the full survey results. So you'll see all 50 collectibles that I included and what people ranked them, whether they were ranked like top 10. Rizzo, I think, was like number 11. So just to get you the full perspective. So it's not like we're just, alienating everything else that isn't in the top 10. Then we're going to talk about some insights that people from the community had, and then get into a bit of a discussion. So yeah, and hoping to kind of really interact with all of you on the live right now to see what you think, if you agree with this list, if you disagree, if there's other collectibles that we should have considered, or if you think this is bias or what have you. Just really wanted to kind of get a fun discussion going. So let's kind of get into some of these limitations quick. So one big thing is that this is a really small sample size. Like, I don't know how many thousands of users Veve has, but I was only able to get 326 responses, which is still substantial, but definitely far too small to represent like the broader community. We also could have had people that, maybe put in duplicate entries. So if they had a particular collectible that they really loved, they could have like actually done like 3 or 4 surveys. Maybe they did 20. I don't know. I could probably find this out, but just, I did this really quickly, and I just wanted to make sure that we had a fun way of kind of approaching this. But just, again, considering some of these limitations, group influence, it's possible that like certain groups might have been like, hey guys, there's a survey on Grails, like let's make sure to put in more entries from this group. So people could have done that. And then audience representation. So this is another big one. So as you guys know, the people following me are really a small subset of a larger ecosystem, and their preferences might not reflect the wider community. So that's just a few limitations there. I've got some more. Edition sizes. So collectibles with larger edition sizes are probably likely to receive more votes. Because if you think about it, like in the case of a UR Vader or a Superman, people that have these, there's a lot more people that have these, so they might be more highly ranked because there's more of them. So yeah. Oversights. So I did make some huge errors, I have to admit, in some of the collectibles that I didn't include accidentally, like the Spider-Man Noir was a big one, or like some of the Mighties. And I unintentionally left these out just because what I did initially, and I'll explain this, is I sent out just a tweet saying, hey, can you comment on what your top 10 Grails would be? And I kind of included that as the top 50 list. But a lot of people were saying, it would have been great to have just more collectibles listed, like maybe over 100 would have been ideal. So that was, yeah, definitely an oversight on my end. Subjectivity of Grails. So, as somebody pointed out, and you'll see this in a further comment, that, as Veve grows, it'll become increasingly difficult to have a definitive list of top 10s, because there'll be different factions and there'll be just so many things to choose from. It'll be like so hard to be like, this is objectively a top 10 collectible. Another big thing is limited representation. So while listing all comics and collectibles would be ideal, it would be overwhelming and impractical. So like, let's say we did put like, the hundreds, if not 1,000 plus collectibles that you could choose from, people probably wouldn't even want to take the survey. They'd be like, all right, listen, like I can't even find my top 10. So, they might give up. A few more things, survey placement. So, collectibles that are listed at the top of the survey may be, clicked on more than things at the bottom if somebody's trying to complete this quickly. Uh, also I was kind of ambiguous when I asked, what your top 10s are. I didn't say, what do you think's the most expensive, or what do you think like the top 10 long term would be, or what do you think they're most iconic? So just another thing to consider. And then the impact of new users. So, the preferences for Grails can evolve as new users join. So, as much as we may have a lot of people right now that still hold on to those OG collectibles, if, Ben, the co-CEO, is right and we get 4x the amount of users, new people coming in now might value different things. So these are all limitations that I just wanted to bring to you before we dive in. Another big thing is just a disclaimer. So while this is going to obviously provide some insight, it is no means like, a definitive reflection of what the top collectibles or grails are. Like you could tell me that, hey, you're a huge lumpy space princess collector, and I'd be like, listen, you know what, if that's your grail, that's your grail. And another big thing is collectibles with extremely limited edition sizes and like one-of-ones just weren't included just because there's such a small amount of users that have those. But if those were included, it's a good chance it would overshadow the other entries that are currently on the top 10 list. And this is just for fun. I really just wanted to get a nice discussion going. And yeah, and really the interpretation should be made with these constraints in mind. So that's the big intro, just to make sure that you guys are all kind of up to speed on what I was thinking, putting this out there. And, again, not to think that, if you're like, let's say your grail isn't on this list, that's the above all and end all. So here we go. So last thing before we jump into it, so just my process again, I just kind of reached out on X and I said, what are your top 10 VV official grails? And then like I had a ton of people that commented. And so, Elmo Jones, California Comics, like, KM3000, Greyhound, like, etc. Like all these people. So I just showed you a few examples, but they all commented and, kind of said what their top 10 were. And that was the way that I approached this survey of including everything. I know that Chris also reached out, Chris Severs reached out and he's like, hey man, like wish you would have included more key comics. So again, like, couldn't make this perfect, but I think we had a pretty solid top 50 list. Okay, so here we go. So these are the top 10 based off 326 responses. So if you look at partners, like there was, overwhelmingly that seemed to be the top grail that people really favored, with 263 out of 326 responses is something like 80%. So 80% of people that took this survey, put partners in there, right? Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, some more people trickling in, which is great. The second big one was Spider-Man. So Spider-Man Secret Rare with 219 responses. And again, we can start to break these down. Maybe we can go through it afterwards, but you're starting to see why, people really kind of voted for these. For Todd came, third at 191 responses, the Heart of Silicon Secure, the first NFT on the app. So really kind of exciting. Then it was kind of a toss-up between the Miles Morales and Marvel Comics #1. As you can see, it was like 174 compared to 173 responses. So like these are so close that you can't even, all of these are actually pretty close. So you can't really make any like accurate predictions. If we would have had another 100 responses, this maybe would have shifted everything. Vader came in sixth, 170 responses. Vader you are. Amazing Fantasy 15 at 165. Superman 153, the VV OG logo at 106. And then this was interesting, Fantastic Four #1 SR. This was kind of competing with Rizzo as the 4th spot or 10th spot, and then just really beat it out in the last kind of round of responses. So that's your top 10. We can go through quickly just why people think this. So I think partner statue, as we talk about, is literally Walt Disney and Mickey. It's the representation of Disney. It's the first golden moments. I mean, he's the king of animation. He started everything. Mickey's literally started everything as well. It's one of the biggest brands in the world. Spider-Man, as we know, it's the most popular superhero in the world in something like 58 countries. It was the first Marvel, digital collectible on the app. It's limited to 1,000 editions. It looks good. It's animated. Then we have Todd, the first ever digital collectible ever on Veve. It's the FA of Batman. And I forgot to say the FA is also of Spider-Man and partners. It's just amazing how many things actually go into Todd. It's it's the oldest collectible on Veve. It was really like taken in by a lot of OGs, like again like Silicon, and just is like really loved. Then we have Miles Morales SR, which is the FA, limited to 250 editions. I think like 90 were held back or something, so there's like 160 in circulation. It could be the next best, collectible, behind Spider-Man, because obviously there's, a lot of discussion that it could enter the Marvel universe in kind of a real life form, which would be really cool. Then this is a really classy one, Marvel Comics #1 SR, because it's the first, Marvel comic. It kind of represents the first physical comic as well of Marvel, so it's kind of like nice. It's like the first in the physical and in the digital. It's limited, and there's like 600 editions, and I don't know. I just think people that like really focus on Marvel 1 are pretty classy. Darth Vader, you are one of the biggest superheroes in the world, or sorry, villains in the world, if not the biggest villain. Star Wars, you are, I think it's just like over 2,000 editions, so it's still limited enough. And it's really cool. It looks good. It does a great animation. It's the FA, so lots of things there. Amazing Fantasy 15, I put it right under Spider-Man, coincidentally, because again, it's a big deal, right? It's like the first appearance of Spider-Man in real life, and now we have it on comic book form, and this again, it really scarce. I think it's like under 250 editions, so it's pretty amazing. Again, Superman actually kind of surprised me. I wasn't sure if it was going to make the top 10, but again, like FA of Superman, another big deal. But I just was surprised by this because I think there were like so many other things there. But again, it could be a huge grail for a lot of people. I think it's like 280 gems right now. Veve OG logo, I think it's just a lot of utility. It's kind of the OG status. So yeah, man. And then Fantastic Four #1. So lots of cool stuff. And again, Fantastic Four #1. People are telling me it kind of started the Marvel universe. I don't know enough about it, but a lot of good stuff. So that's kind of your top 10. Just a bit of an overview. Omar says, any thoughts on the Black Penny SR as a Grail? We actually put it in, I believe, in this, and I think it's pretty dope. Like, again, there's a lot of people that believe that would be a Grail. Even now, David Yu, the SR, is like something like 45 responses that I'm about to show you. So yeah, so there's a lot of good ones. So if anybody has any comments, we'll take a few comments and see what people think. And if not, I'll just show you the full list because I think it would be cool to just go through that as the full list. So let me just go ahead and share my screen here, guys. Yeah, I agree with that, Mew. Somebody says, let me just do this first. Yeah, somebody says, I was hoping that Lambo GT350 would make it, first Lambo ever. I know, and I actually had that on my initial list before I saw what people were thinking. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen so if you can all see this. So this is the actual back end of that survey. So we can just go through one by one. So Spider-Man SR 219, Miles Morales 174, Marvel Comics #1 173, Partner Statue 263, Superman 153, Vader UR 170, Steamboat UR 60, Elsa Golden Moments 45, R2D2 Golden Moments pretty significant 62, C3PO 27, Wolverine SR 24, Gold Veve OG logo 106, Donnie, that little pony from the Powerpuff 38, Austin Martin 19 SR, Fantastic Four #1 91. Amazing Fantasy #15 SR 165, Luke SR, which I thought maybe would have had more votes to be honest, 32, Wolverine FA 38, Todd FA 191, Rizzo 77. That's what I was saying. It was getting kind of close to Fantastic Four. Harley Quinn 19. I thought I'd have more, 27. Incredible Hulk #1 31. Amazing Spider-Man 252. That SR that's like super crazy limited that Dr. Rolex had. It was 18. Avengers 1 SR 8, Giant Size X-Men 26, Tales of Suspense 7, Incredible Hulk 181 11, Uncanny X-Men 22, Ultimate Fallout number 4, SR15, Lambo 350 GT. See, that's what you're talking about, Mew. Like, yeah, surprised that I only had that. Journey into Mystery 10, Dragon Girl UR 14, a Comey logo 24, Mickey 100 poster only 4 people, Stanley SR 21, Golden Moogly 8, Silver Moogly 2, geez, Lambo Aventador SR 2, Lambo Hurricane SR, wow, Mickey Sorcerer Hat, Star Wars number 1, Marvel Iron Man number 18, a few no responses here, R2D2 UR 13, C3PO SR 11, Flower Bomber, Patina Bronze Edition 5, Mickey Signature, Stanley Fine Art, Homer and Bart, and David USR. So actually, I think somebody said earlier, like, what about Penny Black? So that's a perfect example of like, some things that were like left out accidentally, guys, just based on all that feedback. Like again, Spider-Man Noir. So, it is really possible that if more things were included, this would have shifted the whole list. It's really possible, but I just want to be transparent, show you kind of the process, the limitations. I think even like David USR, somebody said, oh, can you include that? And I included it a bit later, like maybe an hour into the survey. So maybe that would have had 80 responses. So there's so many things here to consider, but I just really wanted to show you, the back end. So coming back here to the screen. So let's read some of these comments, man. So Roman Zed says these kind of public grails, of course, there's some specific ones that are grails or cost a lot, but it's other group. That's true. Thoughts on the Blue U? Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's a big deal. It seems as though people are really excited about it. It looks good. Obviously it's from the master collector himself. People were saying that it's super scarce, it's limited. It seems to be really rising fast. I mean, it kind of is the, other than Silicon, the heart of Veve and the brains of the operation. So who knows the future there, and I think from what people were saying, it could be interoperable. So there's a lot of things to consider. Not enough Blue U, hard to classify as Grail, such a limited amount of people to own. Yeah, exactly. And this is what I was trying to say earlier, is like when there's fewer people that own something, like for instance, like if there was like a Miles Morales one of one, like, I don't know, like something crazy, like a collectible or something, a lot of people might not look at that as a Grail because it's owned by one user. So there's not enough hype around it. There's not enough people that, want to admit that that might be something that's worth a lot. So, it's kind of this weird thing. Like, I think this like why Bored Apes and all these NFTs from the last bull cycle did so well. They were like at this perfect sweet spot of scarcity and size where enough people can get on board to like, create momentum and to market and to like create like a community. But not enough people where it was like, like they're like, let's say there's only 100 of them, it maybe have died, even though they might have been important, just because there wouldn't be enough marketing and power kind of going through it. So there's kind of this perfect sweet spot, right? Like Todd is another example of that 7,500 additions, so another thing Slider says, just to keep in mind, as you said, current user base might not represent future user base. I think it's bullish either way. A lot of room for growth with new users in different fandoms. Agreed. And I'd like to do like a round 2 of this and maybe like just make the survey a lot more comprehensive, like get like almost like a little committee involved, and like everyone kind of shows, like looks at a top 100 list and makes sure that like it's inclusive, that it's diverse, that it like includes all these different things. So I totally agree. Somebody says great info, thanks man. Dustin says, I don't get the Miles hype. Maybe in the future we just have so many more characters that have carried major movies like Hulk, Wolverine, Thanos, Professor X. Yeah, I mean, I get it for sure. I think it's a lot of people like are speculating that like the Miles Morales could be, the next Spider-Man. Again, being kind of like more of a mixed race, kind of being more future digital age. Maybe like Spider-Man passing over the torch, and then there's a lot of comics that also show like Spider-Man and Miles Morales together. So a lot of people think that this could be the new thing that takes over potentially Spider-Man eventually, or at least has like a little run. And in that case, at 1/4 the edition size, it just like becomes quite attractive. But I agree, like there's a lot of other choices that you can consider. Mewtwo says the golden moments are holding up pretty well. That's cool to see. Yeah, it actually is. And who knows one day if there is utility or if they're used kind of beyond just these golden moments. I know there's been a lot of talk and chatter about it with nothing that's been substantiated yet, but who knows, right? There's still like a possibility there. Good morning, Vivi fam. Good morning, Captain Kirk. Good to see you. Bilbo Swaggins, I like that name, dude. Says I sold my Wolverine SR for 1,500 and bought you for 1,800. If Miles Morales only had 115 works out, it's not that much of a difference. Yeah, it's true. It's true, man. I agree. Like, and that's what I kind of love is that, all these things, there's so much choice, and there's so much perspective on what's important and what's not. And I think that's like why I like having these conversations. I like to, pick everybody's brain, man. And then Dustin says, yeah, true. Why are the artworks overlooked as grails? I always felt the Marvel artworks, one-of-one exclusive artworks, never get their due. I would take a Scotty piece over a Miles SR. Yeah, man, Stan, I think those are good points. I would definitely agree with that. I do think that I would probably maybe, I mean, for me, I like Miles SR enough but who knows, like a one-of-one would definitely be enticing. And I think it's just because, again, going back to what I said earlier, there's not enough people to kind of support the movement on it, right? Because why would you have like 100 or 300 plus people supporting something that only one person can have? I mean, again, I think if everyone was like altruistic and true to themselves, like I think there would, maybe there should be more discussion. I just think that it could be fewer people potentially also like watching this content if I only did the one-of-ones, but I could be completely wrong. Like maybe we should start really considering these one-of-ones, and maybe the whales would be more interested as well because now they're watching content on their one-of-ones, and people are like maybe making a move for 15,000 on something they've wanted for a long time. So it's a good point. Super idea for a stream, brother. Great content. Thank you, my man. It's good to see you, bro. Wolver FA could enter the top 10 in time. Yeah, I do agree with that. I think that would be pretty awesome. I think that would be a great idea. Sup VB fam, what is up? Bilbo Swaggins, California days ago, you told me to delist my collectible for a deal. It's been over for days. You messed up my game plan. I lost hundreds. And why'd you do that? Sorry, guys. Looks like there's some inner drama here. I thought I was going to be reading something. He goes, sorry, FG Pirates. And I see him in the chat. That's hilarious. Well, sorry, guys. It looks like we have a live thing happening here. Fun of the Sun. Nice to have you back streaming. Thanks, man. It's good to be back. Okay, so let's get back to the presentation. So let's get to the next slide here. So went through the surveys results with you guys, and I just want to kind of share some insights that people had, right? So the first thing I want to say is like, these grails that we talked about, like a grail with a specific mint number or something that's important to you would probably like outweigh some of the grails that we saw. So for instance, like if you had a 1939 Todd Batman, I think anybody would be like, oh, I probably prefer that over like, I don't know, a Spider-Man SR, just a generic one, because that like, that year is super important, the kind of the birth year of Batman. And so I think a lot of people would kind of choose that. And I just wanted to highlight that. So we have like, here VV Values talking about his ultra rare Cheshire Cat 420. We have other people talking about comics. We have somebody that talked about the Marvel logo 1962. That was their, favorite year. Sorry, that was the year that Marvel came out, and then all of a sudden they ended up getting that in the drop. So obviously that's a hugely significant mint. And then, I want to like just read what a few people said. So Claire 98 Soon 100 says, it's less obvious now that the seasons now are for OGs, are kind of important to us. I agree that you'll attract some new users interested in specific IP. I think popularity of characters and brand will become more and more important. I agree with this. I think like the macro stuff will become more and more important, like Marvel Comics #1, first comic on the blockchain, or first, Marvel Comics on the blockchain, Spider-Man, like all these different things that are like massively important, like, Disney Golden Moments, like even though they have a lot of editions, when you think 15, 20 years from now, there's probably going to be millions and millions of collectibles, maybe not millions, maybe like tens of thousands, and then millions of editions. So it's going to be so hard to pick what's important. And that's where scarcity might not necessarily be as important, right? When you kind of give it that macro lens over time. Best Vivi YouTuber. Yo, thank you, bro. Flippy love Vivi. Nice. I appreciate that, bro. Love to hear your thought comparing FA SR collectibles to common, rare, and ultra rares to FAs with only one pose. Yeah, I think let's dive into that. It's a good question. I have one more comment here from Cyan. I think I just want to say, like, read what he said. He goes, I respect what you do. Just be careful assuming the market will continue this bull run where we left. I kind of have a different view on top collectibles, looking into the future, as people will collect what they like. New folks will come in and span of attention will shift to best looking and most known collectibles in pop culture. How many people do you know that own or collect a lightsaber? How many people do you know that own or collect a Walt Disney figurine? So his point here is, like, obviously there's way more people that collect lightsabers than there is figurines. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, so I guess now we're going back to the discussion. So love to hear your thoughts comparing FASR collectibles to common RUR FAs with only one pose. Yeah, so I mean, I guess the point here, which Dustin is making, which was actually a good one, is like, if you have an SR that has, let's say, like 1,000 editions, but then the other, rare, ultra rare, and common is also a part of that and has, like, another, let's say, 10,000 editions, then, essentially when people are buying into that collectible, they're buying, one of those four, um, poses, right? And you're saying with an FA that only has one pose, it might only be, like, let's say 5,000 editions. So the total market cap of the FA with one pose is actually, potentially smaller, and people might be, like, tricked because they're thinking, like, oh, well, it only has, it's a 5,000 edition common, so maybe it's not that important. But, like, when you think that SR is part of a bigger, FA, then I totally kind of get what you're saying, Dustin. So I would say, like, looking at edition sizes, the market cap of that collectible, the scarcity of it, all of those would kind of play a component in actually determining, what would be most valuable. I hope I don't know if I explained that as eloquently as I would have liked to, but I totally kind of get what you're saying. And so, like, I'm just trying to think of, like, an example of, maybe Dustin, if you can think of an example of, like, that exact comparison that you're making, it might be easier for us to kind of walk through and discuss. I just can't think of one on the top of my head, but I think it's a great point. Omar says the other interesting comic that still has more growth is X-Men 97 1 comic, or 97 1. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's an amazing one too. I think, like, California Comics is in here. We have Sleeping Comics, like all these guys. I don't know if you guys have seen VVrank.com. That's where Sleeping Comics has all his, like, top ranked comics that are, like, A tier, S tier, all that stuff. Slider says a great problem to have so many FAs and most of the world has not even realized digital contact collecting exists. I really think AR glasses would be the big catalyst until we were earlier. Exactly. This is why I'm still here. Like, a lot of people are like, I've been on the periphery, but I totally believe that this is going to be, like, shifting the world, where everyone's going to start collecting digitally. I think it's like the technology hasn't caught up with, like, the actual products yet, if that makes sense, right? Because it's like right now you have these things that are just sitting on, like, an app or, like, a website, or, obviously we would prefer to have self-custody and, like, interoperability, and I'm hoping that's still a thing, but it's very limited in the functionality, right? They might be being able to enter the DVverse soon, and eventually I think that the world is going to be more cut out for this. Like you talked about the AR glasses, holograms in the future, potentially kids shifting, instead of wanting these physical toys, to play with something that's digital. We're in this weird stage of transformation into the digital world, and we're at the cusp of it. So that's kind of how I see it as well. Like, these things on the blockchain, they're the first there. They're first of their kind. They're high quality. They're, like, they're historic. They're like artifacts, in the digital realm. And just like, you saw in the physical world when people were collecting, like, Hulk #1 60 years ago or whatever, don't quote me for the exact years, but whenever that came out, um, again, nobody knew what the heck it was. Nobody gave a shit. Nobody thought, like, let me collect this stuff or, like, store it away. Like, this has been a theme, right? Like, even in, the physical world, right? Like N64s, Pokemon booster boxes, like all these people just rip them, even though they're worth like 300K now, right? So it's like, uh, I think like that's, again, I'm not saying that's going to be these crazy price points. Who knows? They could be, but I do think that's the same mentality I have about this stuff. Is like once we're all there, then people are going to start to see the significance. Okay, so yeah, so this is Dustin kind of gives us an example like Black Panther, versus Hulk. So again, so Black Panther having, the secret rare and the ultra rare and like all these different things, and then the Hulk, right? So it's kind of an interesting thing because, the Black Panther SR would be harder to obtain. Um, and so, it might be more prized, but again, it's part of a larger kind of ecosystem because there's three other collectibles that share that same FA that came out at the same time. Where, like you said, is Hulk is like one collectible that may have fewer editions overall than the total pool of those Black Panthers, but maybe like it doesn't like incite enough. I don't know, interest in people because they just think, oh, it's common, like it's not secret rare, even know that it has like half of the total edition sizes, so that total drop of Black Panther. So I don't know how this is gonna like play out over time. I think like how I see it is, again, like people are like, into scarcity, they're into these things that are like, in my opinion, less important. But over time, similar to like comic book industry, like FA Hulk would be a huge deal. Like FA maybe Black Panther SR would be a huge deal. But I don't know, like I would almost put them like similar in terms of equality because of the size of the Black Panther, editions, right? With considering the other three collectibles. So who knows, man? Over time, maybe these like things that are like really easy to obtain now that everyone's just like overseeing become something that's like hugely significant, right? And we talk about it like when you only have like 5,000 or 10,000 people owning something that could be considered a massive grail. I think it's a good strategy to move forward. So I think that's good. California Comics says, where do you stand on special mints such as FA year, sequential, binary, etc.? Yeah, I think it's huge. I think the only thing that I find interesting is that the special mint year and the like kind of the edition on the blockchain are different from what I remember. It's kind of like the forward-facing edition and what was actually minted on the blockchain are different. So I think like it would have been cool to have that more tidied up. But I do think it's really cool. I think like for sure, like I said, like a 1939 Todd Batman or an Amazing Fantasy 15, like 1963 or like anything like that would make a ton of sense. So I think like FA year is big. Sequential I think is really cool too, like to considering like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 sub 100, the last edition number, like all these things are really cool. And I think because there's so few of them, people want to distinguish themselves within a collectible, right? So I think that's really cool. Yeah, binary, a lot of people collect that as well. Yeah, so I think that's really cool. Will SR be worth less of Black Panther because of so many FAs when you account for all rarities? Will SR be worth less of Black Panther? So many FAs when you account for all rarities? Potentially, like if people like shift focus over time and maybe they see the SR being just a total part of the FA of all those collectibles, then maybe like you're right, like maybe the value could diminish over time. Really, it depends on like I guess how the community would value that. I'm not really sure if I would like to make some comparisons to the real world or other physical worlds, but I'm not sure if I like have the knowledge for that. But I think it's like anybody's game, like I don't think you're wrong or right. Like I think we'd have to see how these things go, but I like your way you're thinking. What I like about SR Black Penny was that they gave limited numbered editions physical collectibles with VV to get that SR from drop. I agree with that. Like that's really special. And again, like I should have included that on the list. I don't know, like there's so many things, man, to have now at VV that I really wish I would have included that, but I think that's really good insight. And that's cool that they had like the actual limited number, right? So IMO Joker is being slept on. Joker and Vader are always top 3 in any villain tier list. We have nearly 100,000 Batmans on BB and maybe 10,000 Jokers. I agree with that. Yo, Digital Vibes, what's up, man? Nice to see you. Sorry, I didn't kind of clue in earlier, but yeah, I think that's so accurate. I mean, Joker is a huge one. It's FA. I think it was 7,500 editions. I remember back in the day when I first started, I was like obsessed with the Joker. I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And it just never really had its day. It never took off, you know, like when Todd took off, I thought like for sure Joker would be like right behind it. But yeah, both have 7,500 mints. Yeah, exactly. We need Burns would have evolved old collectibles into new items. I agree, man. Like I would love for like the opportunity to do something crazy. Like you burn like a Miles Morales and like a Spider-Man SR, and then all of a sudden you get something crazy cool, like I don't know, like a limited edition, like you know, maybe there's only 25 people that can do this first, and there's like 25 editions of like some crazy animated, you know, Spider-Man or something with a black Spidey suit that gets like sent to you with a physical collectible. Like these things are like so cool, and then it would decrease the circulating supply of both those, making more scarce. Like they should really start thinking about this stuff because that would be epic. I think everybody would agree with that. Yo, Chad, history is history. You'll only ever have one platform launch edition collectibles once amongst thousands of FAs. Season, and even one more important. Good to see you. Yeah, man. Ben Jamal, good to see you too, bro. You're totally right. This is a huge deal. I think this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity, you know, not just on Veve, but on other platforms that have these like licensed digital collectibles. Like I look at like Superman #1 and things like that. To me, these are huge collectibles. I think, you know, I think like we could really kind of start to see some things take off. Maybe not now, maybe not in 5 years, maybe in 10 years. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow. But that's my mentality. Like this is for all of the digital history going forward forever, literally forever. Like this is going to have significance. And when more people are involved in the digital realm, which we kind of saw a glimpse of back in 2021 because of the pandemic and people having to like focus on Zoom and like digital platforms and whatever, you know, I think we saw a glimpse of what could be. So digital vibes. If whales are thinking about mint numbers now, future whales will think about mints too. 100%, man. I totally agree with that. It kind of reminds me of like, you know, graded comics and like how people want the best ones. I think people will start to like look at like mint numbers and things like that as a way to distinguish themselves. So like, you know, a sub 100 or a special mint or a sequential mint or the last mint. And then, you know, eventually I think people just obtaining these overall would be a feat and something that, you know, would be cool. Realm World says, when digital oink. I don't know. I don't know if that's a joke or if that's actually something serious. I don't know. I don't even know what that is. Sorry, buddy. Maybe you can explain it. Unless it was a joke and you're talking about a pig or something, but I actually don't know what that is. Mewtwo. Veve has prioritized superheroes and comics heavily. I'm excited to see the sports vertical grow along with music icons like FA Kobe Bryant and Biggie Smalls. That would be so cool. I totally agree. That would be amazing. Imagine that, like a Kobe Bryant on the blockchain, like dunking or something. Biggie Smalls, huge rapper. I mean, damn, yeah, that would be so cool too. I don't even know how you could like own people. You know what I mean? Like how did that even works? Homer and Bart is a grail because they are goats on predicating the future, and many were accurate, or predicting the future, and many were accurate. Yeah, man, Homer and Bart was a big one. I think like people really undermined the importance of that too. I totally agree. I thought that was a big one as well. And that was a cool moment for that Disney week. So I collect all FA Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, all special events like Platinum Moments. There's only one 100-year anniversary, only one 50-year Golden Moments. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's a huge deal, right? Like if you think about Disney's like probably one of the biggest brands in the world, most collectible or most collected brands in the world. And then this year we happen to have the 100-year, right? So if you say like imagine finding something that's FA, that's the 100th year anniversary. And yeah, it's also pretty interesting that like all of the Disney collectibles are dropping around this time. So I agree with you, man. Like, you know, 100-year only comes literally once in a century. Like I'll be dead before the 200th year unless we have some way to upload my consciousness into a mechanical body or something, which I'm hoping for, but likelihood is no. So yeah, you're right. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. That's a good point. Ryan says, do you think there are a bear market and a bull market? Do you think there are bear market and bull market collectibles such as VVIP is best during the bear because loyal people with brands stick around, and then major IP for new users during the bull? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think like the thing is with like new IP is that it's getting established. So it can go to zero. It can also be the next Bored Apes. And even Bored Apes has like took a significant, setback recently, right? So yeah, I think that's like a wise perspective. Um, I do think that like, because of Bitcoin and everything going on in the bull cycle right now, in the beginning of it, or however you see it playing out, that's why there's a lot of like, translation over here to our market and why things are kind of going up. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. What about a grading system based on the number of transactions on each collectible comic, say rewards holders? Yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool. I think we talked about like the virgin mints back in the day. Like if you bought something on the drop and then you never transferred it, that like you would have a clean transaction history on the blockchain. And I think that's still something that I find sexy. Like I think like because of the detail orientedness of certain collectors, I do think that they like might be even a premium on something like that, like something that's never moved because it kind of represents like something being traded. It's like if you had a car and you sold the car and then somebody else bought the car and then they sold the car, like there's a depreciation value because I guess it's physical and we don't see that in the digital. But I do think like there's some cool stuff like that. I do think like people that have been holding, especially for like a certain amount of time, should get something like unique. Like imagine you held for like 3 years like a Todd and never sold it, and then you got like a cape that only like 12 people have because they only are the ones that held it for that long. I think it's a really cool idea. We need more Stormtroopers and Star Wars limited edition collectibles. I would love Star Wars helmets, perhaps PFP helmets. Yeah, that would be really cool. I think that would be like a nice addition too. And like I love these accessory ideas. Like I really want to start seeing more of that as well. Love Ben's comments about planning for 4x user base in 2025, but do you foresee dormant users coming back en masse? So this is a great question. I think like the biggest issue currently, or maybe concern that I have is that, people like to make money. And I think like a lot of the reason why we had such a lot of users initially was predicated on that notion where like somebody could come in, buy a drop, land something that was worth like 6K and then sell it. And then now you have like literally $6,000, in your bank account if you wanted to cash out, or you can use that to get into other collectibles. And I think like despite Veve not necessarily like admitting that and trying to like, just be the world or the platform that the world collects, I do think there's a big component that like, people want to win the lottery and like, and despite what they're saying too, like I think majority, if not a lot, of the user base they have is from crypto. So people were like here to make money. Um, and collecting kind of like, I don't know if you guys have this mentality, but like I don't collect if I think something's going to lose me money. Like if I'm collecting something, it's because I want that thing to grow over time. You might have swings like, in the market where things go up, things go down, but ultimately you're thinking about it like, I want to make money from this long term. And so I think like that's where, as much as I hate to admit it, like that's where like if they don't grow the user base and they have more and more drops and it continues to saturate the market, as we all know, then it's potential that these things go down. And they're smart, right? They're incentivizing the MCP. They're having like these whales that like now get like prize collectibles, like, and I want that to see that more, like a whale that gets something that's worth like 5K, just 100 of them, because then at that point it's incentivizing them to keep spending, and then on top of that they're holding those collectibles in their well, I'd like to say wallet, but it's in their the app right now or in their account. And then what happens is it takes out of the circulating supply and it creates more scarcity, and then people like maintain those values, right? And so I think we need a mix. But do I see dormant users coming back en masse? I literally think if there's a financial incentive, I think they will come back. So I think if they start like looking at their wallet and they see like their Todd's gone up to 1,500, or like, like a new drop comes out that's like really exciting and there's good marketing, then we could see that. I mean, I can tell you just in my personal life, like everyone I know that I got into this, and I'm talking like at least 100 people minimum. That's probably like 150. Honestly, if I think about like the amount of people that are probably influenced to come to Veve, it might be like 10,000+, right? Because like all the stuff I've done on YouTube, all the people I've told in person, the trickle effect, you tell a friend, they tell a friend. Like I remember going to a party in the Hype, and like this was somewhere like in Oakville, and I live in like Whitby area. This is like in the GTA within Toronto. And I went there and like somebody recognized me and they're like, bro, are you that like guy like that does this? Like, yeah. And then like 4 guys at this party I've never met were all like downloading it. A hairdresser downloaded it. So as much as like, remember that whole time where like Veve said they had like millions of users? I don't know if it was millions, but I definitely think hundreds of thousands, right? Like if I'm talking about a random party that I went to that I knew nobody and people were recognizing me and all of those people downloaded something, like it obviously was getting out there. So, you know, it could come back. I think like the biggest thing is a lot of people were burnt. They bought things for like a lot of money and they lost a lot of money. And like, I don't know if they'll ever get back to that point price wise. I mean, because of how much more collectibles we have now and because of the few users. So if you think about it, even if we 3x'd our user base from the last bull cycle, you know, it's possible that we still wouldn't reach those previous price points because we have way more saturation now in the app. There's way more choice. So I think it's like really an interesting discussion. I think I'm glad you brought that up, dude. Omar says, Homer and Bart FA, first golden moment drop for Disney and very popular brand. Yeah, such a good one. I love it as well. It looks super cool. And it's like kind of nice too, kind of fits more like digital collectible NFT lens. Like it's kind of something cool to own, like Homer and Bart, like especially with the whole like, you know, fortune telling that you're seeing, like you said, like with like every time they put out an episode, it feels like they're predicting the future. It almost feels like there's like some kind of simulation that's mocking us, you know? So I hear you, Omar. Dustin, would love to see Veve Grails or Veve give held back mints of comics or collectibles or characters to the actors who play them. Potential shoutouts on socials. That would be actually a really good idea. Like if you gave like, let's say Spider-Man to Tobey Maguire or like, you know, or like, you know, you give like a Batman to Ben Affleck or something, like that's actually a good idea. And you give them something special, like, you know, a sub 30 or like whatever Veve's holding. Like that's a great marketing strategy, Dustin. Yeah. They should do that. Scotty or Scotchy, glad you came back creating content. Thanks, bro. Do you have any plans, ideas for future content from the Veveverse? Yeah, this is actually a really good thing. I was going to bring this up in the stream, but this is so interesting because once the Veveverse comes out, I swear to you, it's going to shift what people think are grails. Um, because they're going to see things in the Veveverse. We're going to see how they're utilized. We're going to see if they're like how they look. We're going to see what draws people in. Like who knows, it could be cars that have some like, you know, huge incentive, or it could be like the OG collectibles because people are like, damn, this is just like so cool to see an HQ19 in person or like in the Veveverse. It could be like accessories, it could be like, you know, stuff that you're wearing. Like maybe they're going to come out with clothing and it's going to be all about your avatar and how good your avatar looks, right? You're wearing like 10K worth of stuff, like a Rolex digital watch, and like, you know, maybe there's going to be some potential partnerships, right? Like all of a sudden now you have like avatars from outside worlds, like that are interoperable that can come in the Veveverse. Like I don't know, you know, but I do think that it's going to shift the perspective. Romor says, I collect Blackpink. Yes, Blackpink was another one that was really cool that I should have included. So that's what I'm saying. There's so much choice now. And I think to do this right next time, to actually establish like a top 100 list, there needs to be a committee. There needs to be a diverse spectrum of like people, you know, representing what they think is important. There needs to also be some objectivity in that, like market cap size and, you know, potentially like some back end data on what Veve is seeing. But yeah, like I do think like again doing this again was it's difficult, right? Like this is my first kick of the can. It was just for fun, and I think we got some insight, but I don't know. Doing it again, I think that we can definitely do better. If FA matters and mint count matters, what's your perspective on Elsa FA? You know, 12,333 editions versus Platinum Elsa D100. What has more value to you? I mean, damn, that's a big edition size, right? Like 12,333. I think aesthetically it's sexy as hell. Like it looks so good. You know, the details on that. Same with like Walt, you know, like just the precision of it and like just something like magnificent about it. Platinum Elsa D100, only 641 editions. It's representing, you know, the 100th anniversary of Disney. And man, that's so limited. I think like this is how I think I see it on the short term. I'd probably collect that Platinum Elsa if I had to make the choice. And then over time, like I would see how the FAs are doing in the market, let's say like 5, 10 years from now, and potentially then shift back and get like a special mint of that Elsa FA. So maybe like a short versus long-term thinking, depending on like how the first appearance of FA gets understood by like the market going forward. If it's like a significant thing, if it's impossible to prove, like things like that, you know? But I think on the short term, I'd probably go with the D100. Like, yeah, I don't think there's a clear answer, but it's just given the amount of people we have on the app currently, it's a pretty big edition size, you know? So Sabretooth going to drop in 15 minutes. Yeah, true. Damn, 9 minutes away, guys. So I'll probably wrap it up maybe right at like 10:57, so then everybody can go get that drop. Would love to see a video on the top 10 most slept on VV collectibles. Ooh, that's a good one. And maybe that's the next video. Maybe that's another question I can put out and say like, listen, you know, we did the top 10 grails. Here's what they were. Disclude them, or exclude them from the list and say like, what are the most slept on, and then include like, you know, more options. That's a great idea. I like that, Ryan. Bill's in the house. What's up, my man? Great to see you, dude. Uh, man, Bill's again throwing the daps. I appreciate it, brother. Matt Johnson, hey Chad, what do you think about the Stan Lee set? I think it's solid. I think Stan Lee's hugely iconic. I think it like, you know, it's amazing to have. I think it's just like more niche potentially because, you know, maybe fewer people kind of want to have that. They might maybe rather have the collectible, but I think it's classy. Yeah, I think it's a good one. I think like eventually over time people may value it more and more, considering that like this is a guy that, you know, created Marvel and everything in it. So yeah. Hey, Win Tran, I think is that it? What's up? Been a while. Good to see you, bro. I know it has been a while. Dustin says, would love to see live auctions or liquidation sales in the VVverse, draw people in or click and buy options. Dude, that would be my goal too. Like I would love for you to walk into somebody's showroom and they have like almost like a sale going on. And they're like, hey man, you know, here you can buy this collectible for, you know, whatever it is, like a 4,900, or like if you're a friend of mine, you get an incentive, or if you visit my showroom more often. Like I want them to start thinking about this, but I do agree that that would be so sick. And even like imagine sitting in a live auction with like 100 other people and everyone's like competing on something, or like you just can go sit in the live auction space and like watch them come through. I think like that's really genius. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I think I answered all the comments. So, you know, just a bit of a discussion about the grails. It was great to see everybody. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was a little nervous just doing this. It's been so long, but I think it was a good discussion. And I'll answer one more question. Digital Vibe says, I do think wearable things in VVverse will do super well if they have it. We already have fashion IPs, James Bond gadgets, lightsabers. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think like walking around with a lightsaber and doing all these cool things would be amazing, and wearables would be awesome. And I think like people want to represent themselves as best as they can. So I feel like it would be a big part of the market, especially if everyone's in the VVverse chilling. So I think that's great. So yeah, thanks so much, guys. Good luck on the drop. I think that would be amazing. John also says, don't VV have partnerships with gaming companies they have not talked about? Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things coming down the line. And I'll just end saying that, like, you know, with the co-CEO, Ben Rose here, I was pretty impressed with him. Like, we chatted before the interview and after, and like, he seems really gung-ho on the future of VV and really wants to make a difference. And I could think you could see that from his ability to just take things on the chin, like being very transparent about where we're at, where the foundation is. So I'm confident that like when he says Q1 VVverse, like, you know, even though we've heard that a million times, I'm confident it's going to happen. So yeah, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody showing up. Hope that was, you know, kind of insightful for all of you, and good luck on the drop. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Thanks again. Bye now.